The night Yu Menglong died, Beijing was colder than usual. Sharp wind cut through the towering residential complex in Chaoyang district, scattering dust and dry leaves across the pavement. At 11:42 p.m., a body struck the concrete with a sickening, echoing thud that startled a few residents still awake. Within minutes, blue and red lights flashed across the courtyard, sirens piercing the silence of the upscale neighborhood. A small crowd gathered behind the police lines, whispering, confused, terrified. No one could believe that the man lying motionless on the ground was actor Yu Menglong, celebrated idol, rising star, and beloved figure across Asia. First glance, the scene suggested a tragic fall. An accident. Maybe alcohol. Maybe something worse. But from the moment officers entered the building, they sensed inconsistencies. A glass shattered inside the apartment. A chair overturned. A balcony door half open. The faint smell of liquor mixed with an unfamiliar chemical scent. And yet, there were no immediate signs of a struggle, at least not anything obvious. His companions that night claimed it was a party, a casual gathering among friends at a rented high-rise suite. But when pressed for details, their stories didn't align. 6 people said they were present. Civilians reported seeing as many as 14 entering the building earlier that evening. One staff member insisted there were 17. Hours later, that same staff member deleted her statements and refused further interviews. The night was already thick with contradictions. The internet had erupted with rumors. Some said he'd been drinking excessively. Others whispered about an argument. Some even claimed he'd been pushed. But all speculation collapsed under one official announcement released the next morning. Actor Yu Menglong died due to an accidental fall after consuming alcohol. Just like that, the case seemed closed. But then came Song Yiren. Her name appeared unexpectedly in early reports, not as a witness, not as a bystander, but as someone who had spoken with Yu Menglong hours before his death. She was summoned for questioning. Soon, events that night became the centerpiece of an online storm. Millions demanded answers. Was she there? Was she not? What did she know? Within days, she was declared a suspect. Her initial statements were calm, precise, controlled. Admitted she had argued with him earlier about a work-related dispute, but insisted she left the building long before the incident. She offered a timeline that investigators struggled to verify. Surveillance cameras on the 17th floor malfunctioned that night, the very floor the party occurred. A coincidence, authorities said. The public didn't buy it. Shops began removing posters featuring her face. Brand partnerships froze. Anonymous accounts posted photos of her home. Death threats filled her inbox. Despite her plea for privacy, her face was splashed across tabloids under headlines like, Song Yiren linked to Yu Menglong's death. Actress behaved suspiciously hours before tragedy. And the more she tried to explain, the darker the narrative grew. By the time her first trial began, the courtroom was so packed that even journalists had to fight for seats. Cameras clicked furiously as she walked in, pale, trembling, but composed. Her lawyers argued that there was no evidence placing her at the scene during the fall. Prosecutors countered that her involvement earlier that evening contributed to the emotional instability of the victim. It was a vague accusation, but in a case shrouded in chaos, vagueness was enough. After 12 days of trial marked by missing footage, inconsistent testimony, and uncooperative witnesses, the judge issued a harsh verdict. Song Yiren, though not charged with homicide, would still face a multi-year sentence for negligent actions contributing to dangerous circumstances. Gasps echoed in the courtroom. She lowered her head, her expression unreadable. The cameras capturing every blink, every tremor, every twitch of her lips. Public opinion exploded. Some celebrated her conviction. Others condemned it as a witch hunt. But regardless of stance, one truth lingered in the air. Something about the case didn't add up. Weeks after the verdict, just as the country began to move on, a single anonymous letter arrived at the office of Song Yiren's attorney. Inside was a USB drive. No signature. No note. No explanation. The drive contained a grainy, incomplete video file titled 11:38 p.m. Raw. Showed a hallway. Shadows. Raised voices. The silhouette of a man stumbling. Then a figure lunging. Final seconds were corrupted, glitching, cutting abruptly before anything decisive could be seen. Yet, what remained was enough. The man in the video wasn't alone when he fell. The defense lawyer's hand shook as he replayed the file. The timestamp placed the footage minutes before Yu Menglong hit the ground. The hallway matched the floor layout from the night of the party. One voice, distorted but chilling, was heard saying, "Don't let him leave." It was not Song Yiren's voice. With this new evidence shifted, her legal team demanded a retrial. The court reluctantly agreed. The media erupted again. Reporters camped outside detention centers. Crashed twice. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. It happened that night. During the retrial, Song Yiren walked into the courtroom transformed, not in appearance, but in expression. Gone was the fear. Gone the shame. This place was something fierce, haunted, and resolute. When given permission to speak, she stunned the nation with just one sentence. Yu Menglong did not fall by accident. A wave of shock swept through the courtroom. Journalists jumped to their feet. The judge ordered silence. Continued, voice trembling, eyes glistening under the harsh lights. There was someone else with him. Someone powerful. Someone the world is afraid to name. A hush swallowed the room whole. Reporters exchanged frantic whispers. The judge leaned forward. The guards beside her looked startled. No one had expected this. No one had prepared for this. She paused, gripping the edge of the stand. "Speak. I may not live to see tomorrow." Voice cracked. The judge asked quietly, "And why speak now?" She closed her eyes, exhaled, and whispered, "As he didn't deserve to die like that." Her words hung in the air like a ghost neither judge nor jury could dispel. The courtroom felt colder suddenly, as if the truth itself had slipped in through the doors and settled among them. Heavy and unyielding. The judge inhaled deeply. "Song," he said. "Tell the court exactly what you know." Her eyes opened slowly, and for the first time since her arrest, she looked directly at the cameras, straight into the nation watching her. Parted. Yu Menglong did not lose his balance. He was. The feed cut off. Screens across the country went black for a full 2 seconds. The blackout lasted exactly 2 seconds. But in those 2 seconds, panic swept across an entire nation. Millions watching the live courtroom feed screamed at their screens, pushing frantically, convinced the interruption had been deliberate. When the broadcast resumed, the atmosphere inside the courtroom had transformed completely. Song Yiren was still standing there, pale, trembling, but determined. Yet now, the air around her felt heavier, as if her next words would drag out from the shadows something monstrous and long hidden. A quiet murmur rippled through the room. The judge signaled for her to continue. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. Pushed. The word seemed to echo, bouncing off the marble walls, sinking into every shocked expression. A tremor ran through the audience. Several reporters froze mid-sentence. Lawyers exchanged stunned looks. The prosecutor's pen dropped to the floor with a soft, hollow clatter. The judge leaned forward, his voice tight. She hesitated, a long, suffocating silence that stretched unbearably thin, before answering. "By the man who controlled everything that happened that night." Gasps erupted. Chaos ignited. Reporters shouted questions. Court officers screamed for quiet. Song Yiren remained still, gripping the stand so tightly her knuckles turned white. She closed her eyes. And then she began to speak, not as an actress fighting for her life, as the only witness willing to shine a light on the darkest corners of a carefully orchestrated crime. What she revealed dismantled every official narrative. She said that Yu Menglong had discovered something weeks before his death, a pattern of illegal activity tied to a powerful figure in the entertainment industry. She did not speak his name yet, only referred to him as someone who believes he is untouchable. Yu Menglong had confided in her during the filming of a project. At first she dismissed it as stress or paranoia. But as he showed her screenshots, voice messages, and 2 confidential documents he had obtained, crawled beneath her skin. The evidence pointed to blackmail, hush money, and a trail of coercion involving several young artists. He intended to expose it, but he never got a chance. In the days leading up to his death, Yu Menglong received threats. His phone was hacked. MS calls warned him to stay quiet. Someone even left a message on his car windshield, "You don't know who you're dealing with." On the night of the gathering, he wasn't there to party, he was there to confront someone. But instead of a conversation, he walked into a trap. Song Yiren's voice cracked as she described how she had arrived at the suite earlier that night. She found Yu Menglong arguing with a man, someone older, someone influential, someone she had seen in industry events but never imagined capable of violence. She described the heated exchange. Menglong insisting he would go public. The man insisting he never would. She witnessed a moment when the argument escalated. The man grabbed Yu Menglong's arm. Yu shoved him away. Voices rose. Shattered. At that point, she panicked and left, terrified, confused, torn between loyalty and fear. She had intended to call for help, but her courage failed her. By the time she calmed herself enough to return to the building, a crowd had gathered outside, and Yu Menglong's body lay on the pavement. She had carried this guilt for months. Finished her account. The courtroom was numb with shock. The prosecutor slowly rose, trembling with disbelief. "Miss Song, do you expect us to believe you without evidence?" Her lawyer stood, holding a file. "We have evidence." The courtroom erupted again. Prosecution demanded immediate review. The USB from the anonymous letter was entered into the official record. But now, in the retrial, a second file was presented, one Song Yiren had kept hidden out of fear, a voice recording Yu Menglong made just hours before his death. His voice was shaky but determined. "Something happens to me tonight, it won't be an accident." Collective shudder passed through the room. Then came the video. The raw CCTV footage, uncut, unedited, recovered from a cloud backup by a cybersecurity specialist hired by the defense. It showed Yu Menglong stumbling toward the balcony door. The influential man following behind. Their shadows clashing. The heated struggle. And then, the push. The audience gasped, some covering their mouths, others looking away. The video was grainy but unmistakable. It contradicted every official statement, every media report, every public announcement released after the incident. By the time the last frame played, the entire courtroom was engulfed in a suffocating silence. The influential man, identified as Director Zhao, a veteran industry figure with deep connections, was immediately taken into custody outside the courtroom. His attempt to flee earlier that morning suddenly made sense. Recessed for 30 minutes. When he returned, his expression was grim. Declared that Song Yiren's new testimony and the evidence provided constituted grounds for overturning the previous ruling. Her sentence would be significantly reduced. Her charges downgraded. Her involvement reclassified as secondary exposure under duress. She was no longer treated as a criminal, but as a survivor of intimidation. The court acknowledged her courage in revealing the truth, despite threats. They did not absolve her completely. She had left the scene and failed to report what she saw, but they recognized that her silence had been born out of fear, not malice. Her reduced sentence was met with a mix of relief and sorrow. She wept silently as the verdict was read, not out of victory, but out of the weight of everything she had finally brought into the light. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of reporters swarmed, lights exploding like an onslaught of stars. Shouted her name, questions, demands, but she walked past them wordlessly, escorted by officers. Her face was pale, eyes swollen. But there was something new in them. Not fear. Shame. Resolve. Meanwhile, across Beijing, police raided Director Zhao's office and residence. Documents, hard drives, and multiple sealed envelopes filled with cash. Days later, 2 assistants confessed to tampering with CCTV footage under his orders. The scandal tore through the entertainment industry like wildfire. Major networks cut ties with Zhao immediately. Several actors stepped forward with allegations of manipulation, coercion, even threats. What had begun as a single tragic death now exposed an entire network of corruption and intimidation. But amidst the chaos, haunting truth remained. Had the anonymous whistleblower not stepped forward, the truth would have disappeared forever. Today, no one knows who sent the USB drive. Some believe it was someone inside the party. Say it was a victim Zhao had silenced before. You whisper that Yu Menglong had anticipated the worst and arranged for everything to surface if he died. Authorities never revealed their theory. And Song Yiren, though free from the heaviest burden, walked out of that courthouse a different person, a witness to truth so dark it nearly consumed her. In her final statement to the public, she said, "I didn't save him, but I hope telling the truth saves someone else." Her words echoed through social media, through headlines, through hearts of those who had followed the case since the beginning. The truth behind Yu Menglong's mysterious death had finally been uncovered. But justice, messy and incomplete. Scars that would not fade easily. This was not a story of heroes. Not a story of triumph. It was a story of fear, silence, power, and the courage to break free from it. A story that reminded the world. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It simply refuses to stay buried.